Well, welcome to the Leadership Lounge. It's great to have you here with us. I'm really pleased to welcome today. We have Rachael Wyartt, who is the co-founder of Kiltti, which is a training, coaching and consultancy business. And the difference is where her business is all around kindness and consideration is at the heart of everything. So welcome. I'm really glad that you've joined us, Rachael. I've asked you here today because you've established this business around working with businesses and charities to operate with kindness, and how this can transform relationships and make a real difference to the kind of effective working in businesses and charities with clients and with stakeholders. So you were perfect for our topic today, which is exploring kindness. So welcome, Rachael. Tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of what you do.
Hi, Colin. Thank you so much for inviting me. It's just such a privilege and an honour. Kiltti is all, like you said, all about kindness, and about me is that I've always known I've wanted to make a difference, and I've had quite a varied career, but it's always been working with charities and making a difference, and kindness has always been at the heart of whatever I've done, and it's part of who I am is I live by my values, and kindness has always been part of that. And I've started off working with children in care homes, and then worked in leaving care teams in Suffolk and then in Australia. And then I went, and ironically, working with leaving care teams in North Suffolk led me into sexual health. And I spent 10 years in different ways teaching young people about sexual health, which I loved, going into schools, and then setting up a helpline in London, moving to London, having a huge difference in career in terms of, but still core of all of that was kindness, and then changing tactics and not doing face-to-face work, but going into helpline work, which is very much at the core of what Kiltti does now as well. But all of that making a difference, and that's always what I've known, what I've wanted to do, making a difference, making people feel heard, and being a real advocate for others. And that's still part of Kiltti, and kindness is always at the heart of that. And part of who I am is also, I'm severely dyslexic, and that's quite a journey that I've been on in my 40s. And I think, again, that is kind of where Kiltti comes from as well, and why we've done what we've done with Kiltti.
So what I'm loving hearing there is you've had a range of roles that you've done, but a thread that runs through it, this sense of purpose for you is driven by kindness.
Yeah.
So whether you're working with someone, helping them understand the importance of sexual health, whether you're supporting them, with children's homes and stuff, or whether it's now working with call centres and business, the thread that you're pulling through all of it, that purpose that drives you is around kindness.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, very much so.
And like all your experiences would have helped you understand and seen the benefit of that. So Kiltti, it's an unusual name for a company, but I'm guessing there's a reason for that. So what's the meaning behind the word and the name of your business?
So yeah, there is, and it's I think it's a lovely story. So Dan and I lost our jobs in 2020, and were thinking about what we wanted to do, and setting up a business was really important for us in that. And when we were looking at ourselves and our leadership and how we'd been and our lives, kindness ran through in his life as well. So we wanted to make sure that that was at the heart of our business. And so we wanted ideally to have a name that represented that and meant that. So Dan went off on the old internet and found Kiltti, and it means kindness in Finnish. And I love the word. I love how it rolls off the tongue, and it's just this succinct, lovely word. And words for Dan and I have different meanings because of our neurodivergence. And so him being Asperger's and me being dyslexic, it was something that we both just loved instantly, and we just knew it was the right thing to do. Yeah,
lovely. And I guess because it's a word people perhaps haven't heard of, it starts the conversation, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Just like I've done there. Oh, that's an interesting name for your business. What's that all about?
Exactly. Yeah. And because there's no real affinity to Finland, although I'd love to go now and find out more. It really has, it does start those conversations. We're a little bit worried that it might stop or prevent people coming through, but so far we haven't seen that happen. It's actually brought people to us rather than the other way.
So you've told a little bit about your personal story about discovering the value of kindness through the various roles that you've done, through your life experience, through, as you said, kind of exploring and understanding your dyslexia and how kindness has been an important part of that. So I can see the personal reason. In terms of, for the company, kind of what's really driven the company to have this focus on kindness? Because it's all well and good us as individuals wanting to be kind, isn't it? But the company and the driver behind the work you do in coaching and consultancy and training, kind of why kindness? What's the big thing that sits behind that and drives it?
There are so many reasons why kindness is such a good thing for businesses to have. It's when you're kind, it has a ripple effect. People want to be kind back, and it's a real strength to be kind. And people don't always see that strength. But for businesses, if you're looking at the hard facts, when you're kind and when you have a nurturing, kind culture, productivity goes up by more than 12%. You've got sickness that goes down significantly. So big factors as part from a business point of view, from wanting your business to thrive. Two key things of just being kind, which costs nothing to do, has a good return, but it also has a nice culture. But also, you know, when people are kind, it's a nicer place to be. It softens things. It's glue that holds people together. People want to do things. They want to do more. So when you're kind, you feel better. You feel nicer. There's a nicer feeling. But it has so much more than that as well. So you, in training, when you're kind, in fact, someone came to me as a result of my kindness when I was delivering training 5-6 years ago. They wanted to do business with us and have referred business to us because purely on the kindness that I'd shown them during a training session. So, and it's for business, I've experienced kindness shown to me by good leaders and by bad leaders. And so but also when people are not kind to you, the feelings that leaves you with is just horrible. And I don't ever want people to feel that way. Why would you want to make someone feel bad? And I don't understand that. I don't understand this fear-driven leadership or any kind of thing that's driven by fear. And so the positives for me with kindness just on every single level outweigh anything else, outweigh any negatives, which I don't think there are any negatives, because it takes courage to be kind. It's a real strength to be kind. It can be soft and it does soften things, but it's just, for businesses, and personally, just so good. And I saw it in my dad's business in the 80s, and my dad's a big, burly, 6'3" ex-box heavyweight boxer, and the kindness that he showed in many different elements. So one would be, we had people that worked for us who couldn't pay their rent, and so Dad set up this system where their rent was paid from their wages with their consent, and he talked to them and they did it all together. But not only with that, he with big branded supermarkets, he wouldn't tolerate their terms and conditions because he said it wasn't fair and wasn't right. So he stood up to them, and that was kindness. That was believing in himself enough and believing in him to take the next step, you know, and say, no, actually, I'm not, you may be big and powerful, but I'm not tolerating it. And then one thing sticks with me, and I could only have been about 8 or 9. There was this chap who owned a farm, but he was, I think, a major in the army, and my dad addressed him by his first name. And he said, no, you address me as major. And I remember my dad saying, no, that doesn't work in civilian society. And I remember thinking, wow, that's really great that my dad stood up to this chap and wasn't rude about it, but he was direct. But that showed a level of kindness to him, his sense of purpose and his worth, and that he wasn't going to be bullied or intimidated by this title. And I think because I've seen it and it's been part of what I've grown up with, and my dad doing it softly and directly, I think that's given me quite a nice broad picture of what kindness is and what I aspire to be.
So many things in there just around the reason why this drives your business, and we're going to explore a bit further actually what is kindness, and you've alluded to some of that there's a strength in kindness in it, and the benefit that kindness will bring to your business in terms of output, because people feel safe, and in terms of reducing sickness, again, perhaps because they feel happier as part of that process. So let's delve in then to kindness, what actually kindness is, because I think kindness quite often has this soft, gentle, fluffy bunny type image, and you just need to be soft and gentle and keep quiet and not do things. But I'm not sure that's what kindness is, and you certainly alluded to that in what you've just described, that there is a strength in it. So what do you see as kindness?
Oh, I love that question, because I think it's so multi-layered and so many different things as well. And I do think it's a real strength, and it takes courage to be kind. And anyone who knows me knows that I have a softer side, but also knows that I don't tolerate an awful lot of nonsense, but that seems a bit harsh. But I'm also very blunt and direct in how I am, because for me, I live by my values, and my values are honesty, fairness, kindness, and transparency. And so for me, I have to hold people to account if I don't think they're being honest or transparent or fair. And so that takes real strength sometimes to be able to do it. But I also like what Dr. David Hamilton talks about in kindness, and he says kindness is like glue. It holds society together, and I've got some stuff here. With my lovely dyslexia, my memory is awful, and then with being 48, perimenopausal, my memory is shocking. But I really like what the Mental Health Foundation talks about, and it says kindness is choosing to do something that helps others or yourself and is motivated by genuine warm feelings. And I think that's key, and it has to be genuine. If you're motivated by anything else, then kindness doesn't work, and so it has to be authentic. And then also by Dr. Sarah Arnold, who does this beautiful book, The Kindness Coach, and it's a really lovely book. And she talks about kindness as kindness can be defined as a characteristic, a personal value, and an ethical way of being that influences how we think, feel, and behave towards ourselves, others, and the world. And I just love that, because for me, that's exactly what kindness is, because it's not just about doing, it has to be all-encompassing, and it has to be about kind of thinking, feeling, and being and behaving. And that's, to me, and it has to be genuine and authentic. Otherwise, people will see through it. So it loses its it loses its point. It loses its kind of momentum.
So there's a sense in what you've talked about. Kindness comes from a genuine place, and I'm picking up there's a sense where kindness is about wanting the best for the other person. You've also talked about this clarity and this directness, that actually if we hold things back and don't talk honestly, that in one sense is not kind to the other person either. But that directness is driven by a genuine wanting the situation and the person to be better as a result of this. So even if you were earlier describing the confrontation your dad had with someone that was trying to project his majorness on a civilian, there was a directness, but it was I'm sensing it wasn't a point scoring from your dad. It was a sense of helping this person understand that's not a healthy way to treat others in civilian life, and lording over someone else is not healthy. So the drive and the reason for that was a genuine, honest wanting the relationship and the situation to be better. So therefore, we can be direct because it's driven by this sense of wanting it to be better for the other.
Yeah.
Have I understood that correctly?
Yeah, that would be my understanding of it, and wanting to be, I think, to be fair and be equal. And that's all about kindness, how I believe it to be. So having equality, being inclusive. And you can't have kindness if there's a division of power, or if there's, things are not equal or fair. And so this chap, that's what he'd been used to. So, and he'd been used to being at the top. He'd been used to having that authority. And for my dad, and also for me, there's a time and a place, I think, for authority, and it's needed in certain situations. But in doing business, in that situation and in many other situations where you're wanting to work together with someone, form a partnership, form trust and respect, you can't have that power struggle. It has to be based on mutual respect, and kindness has to be the driver behind that for me.
You've got a lovely quote on your website. So people after this, go and have a look at Kiltti's website. There's lots of really useful information there around kindness. But one of your quotes was, "Kindness is not submission or just being nice, but a real strength." Yeah. So tell us a little bit more about how it's a real strength then.
I think it takes real strength to be kind sometimes, particularly when someone is being unkind to you, or when there maybe is a power struggle. So bullying or harassment, for instance, it can take real strength to stand up to someone who isn't being kind to you, or is not being overly kind to you. To be able to have the courage to speak up is huge. That's a real strength, I think. When someone is not being kind to animals, or have a different views to you, you have to be really honest with yourself, and that can take real strength to be able to go, right, actually this doesn't go with my values. And so kindness for me, I've got to stay true to me. I've got to kindly and appropriately stand up to this, or speak up, whichever one it is. It doesn't have to be aggressive, it doesn't have to be rude, but that can take strength to say, actually, no, that's not okay. But also if you're someone who's reporting into a line manager, and that line manager may not understand you, or may not be taking the time to listen to you, or may not be just being there for you, being kind to you and telling them or explaining to them what your needs are and what needs to help you to thrive, that takes real kindness, because actually you're sharing with them so they can learn, but also you're honouring your values and who you are. And so that takes a real strength and real courage and bravery to do that as well, I think.
So what I'm picking up out of this one is that if someone's unkind to you, it's very easy, in some ways, the easiest option is to be unkind back.
Yeah.
The strength comes in choosing to respond in a way that is not mimicking that same belittling approach. It takes strength, in one sense, to hold back your natural fight mechanism in your primeval, fight, flight, freeze mechanism, to hold that back from the fight, to match them, but to express that still with kindness. So there's a strength in the sense that you're restraining the anger, but choosing to explain yourself in kindness. And then you've also talked about what Brené Brown talks about, that vulnerability and courage, that sometimes sharing a bit about ourselves means we're stepping into that space of being vulnerable, which takes courage.
It does.
Which therefore is a strength. But the reason we're sharing that is to help the person understand. So we're being kind to them in trying to help them see a different perspective.
Yeah.
So is that where those elements of strength comes in?
I think so, but also the strength also lies when just being you and being able to be you, but also when you hear something that doesn't sit comfortably with you, work or personally, or for me, being kind to animals is intuitive and instinctive. I don't understand why you wouldn't be. But I witnessed someone hit their dog with a dog lead, and it was instinctive to go up to that, but I didn't know who they were, and just stop them from doing it, and just say, please don't do that. And that took, who knows, that could have gone horribly wrong. But for me, I wasn't going to I didn't want to witness a dog being, hit by its owner. And that took strength, maybe some naivety on my part, I don't know. But that, and I did do it. I had to breathe and then go forward, because my initial reaction to that was anger. And that's a normal reaction, I think. But that to me was kindness. I wanted to show that dog kindness. I wanted to show that for me, what's really important is speaking up for people and animals that can't. And so that takes strength.
Yeah, and it's interesting that example you've given. I think quite often when people explore topics, we can portray all the amazing bits and we make ourselves sound quite amazing. And of course we are in many ways. But what you've just described is you've been really honest in terms of that natural reaction is anger. And so we're not saying that just because we're kind, we won't get angry. We will get angry at times. But what your kindness means that you said, I took a breath. You take a moment of pause, don't you, to manage that anger. That's the kind thing and the strong thing to be doing. And then you express to the owner your concern about what they were doing, to be kind to the animal, but in one sense to be kind to the owner, to help them understand what they were doing perhaps wasn't the right thing to do for that animal. But again, you did that with clarity and you did that with strength, but you did it with a driver of kindness. So I love your example there. There's a real blend, isn't there, that actually, yes, we will still feel anger, but how we manage that anger is the kindness. So for our listeners and our watchers to understand, doesn't mean that we're all going to be squeaky clean, soft, perfect. We will still feel the anger on things, but it's how we then choose to be strong in managing that, to then deliver the message in kindness.
And I think for me, because I think there's a lot of talk about emotions now, like Brene Brown has got this wonderful book on the Atlas of the Heart, which is the emotions. And for me, I have been quite an angry person. I think quite a lot of people who know me will know the two together, will know that I can, I've played rugby, I played hockey, quite aggressive sports. I can be quite reactive. But kindness has always been at the heart of that. And it's been understanding what that driver of anger is. And for me, and maybe for other people, that driver of anger was not feeling heard and not feeling listened to and not feeling supported. And so all of those things are really important to understand that. And when you don't feel heard, when you don't feel valued, when you don't feel seen, all of these things are really important. And so for a business or for an individual, on both really, when kindness is at the heart, people feel heard, when people feel valued, when people feel seen, anger's reduced, kind things happen, and it's just a better place to be. But it doesn't eliminate anger, it doesn't eliminate those feelings, but what it does is that if you're able through kindness to understand those and be patient and move forward with it, then it makes it easier, and so the anger then reduces. Yeah,
absolutely. And just as you're saying that, I'm reflecting for myself when I have the moments been that I've been angry. And again, people that know me, I think I'm quite level, but I do know that I can get angry. And just as you were saying, reflecting, actually, the moments when I have been angry are when I've not felt valued, not felt listened to. So I think that's a really important insight as to by listening and helping someone feel valued will reduce the anger. And that is a key part of kindness, which we'll explore as part of our session today. So one of the key aspects, again, in chatting with you beforehand, looking through your website and thinking myself around, well, what is kindness? One of the key aspects, I think, is that we have to start with being kind to ourselves first. There's a quote which originates originally from the Bible: "Love others as you love yourself." Starts with the principle you have to love yourself well in order to love others. The work of Kristin Neff in her book on self-compassion also helps us understand the really key importance of this sense of self-acceptance, accepting ourselves for the rough and the smooth, the good bits and the bad bits, and loving ourselves as we are for both aspects. So I guess my question for you, as our expert on kindness today, is how do we start that journey then of being kind to yourself, of this journey of self-acceptance and kindness to ourselves?
Well, that's a nice question, and I don't know whether it's an easy one to answer because it'll be different for different people. I think from my experience and my journey of self-acceptance has been quite long and still ongoing, I think. And so I think it is that internal dialogue that you have with yourself. It's kind of what you say to yourself. You start off then by being kinder to yourself. And it's really interesting that self-acceptance is, like you say, it's accepting all of the bad bits as well as the good bits and kind of going, that's okay. So interestingly enough, yesterday, so 8 years ago, I was diagnosed with dyslexia. But so all throughout my education and all the rest of it, I'd been told I didn't fit in, or I wasn't bright and I was stupid. And so you learn these things about you that I knew weren't true, but I didn't. But all the proof throughout growing up was otherwise, that because I didn't fit in and I didn't thrive in the education system for lots of reasons. And then equally at home, I have and I was bullied at school because I have a wonky eye and my brain's a bit wonky, but it's accepting those things, I can't change my eye, I can't change my brain. And when you are bullied and, people show you that you're different and I am different, it's kind of how do you embrace that difference and how do you accept it and kind of go, actually, I am different, but I'm okay with that. And that takes real strength to be able to do that. And it's taken me a long time to do that. And whilst I have an amazing family, an amazing group of friends who are very supportive and don't see the wonky eye, people who are looking for my vulnerabilities will see it immediately, which often happened when I worked with really vulnerable young people, because it was something they not shared, but if they could find my weak spot, there was a power. And then, but when you were okay with that, if they couldn't then have that power, we got on fine because there is that equality.
We're testing the boundary to see whether you'll still love and accept them. If I poke the bit that might hurt you, and yet you still show me kindness.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's what happened, and that's what we did. And so when we both accepted each other for who we were, it was great. And then yesterday, so Kiltti's been asked to write a proposal for this wonderful charity to do some work, and how the ask was invited or written to us wasn't clear to me or to Dan, but Dan and mine's reaction to it was very different. Mine was, I must be stupid for not understanding it, and there was shame and all sorts of, I must be able to understand it, why wouldn't I understand it? Whereas Dan's reaction was, well, this isn't written very well, so we need to ask questions and clarify. But what it made us both do is take stock of how we both respond to things. And for me not to take on that shame, to me to forgive myself, and that's really important as part of forgiveness and self-acceptance, is to be able to forgive all, loads of different things. I'm not stupid, but also actually it's okay for me to challenge or to kindly ask back for clarification questions. And when we did it kindly, we did it in a nice way, and it was fine. It was all fine. But I wouldn't have had the courage to have done that without Dan being there. And because he is Asperger's and how he's wired, he thrived in school. And so he knows that he's not stupid. And he's got evidence and experience of him not of being told the polar opposite. So it's really interesting how you respond to different things. And so that self-acceptance, so for me, even yesterday, and I think it's just an ongoing thing, going, oh my goodness, yeah, I've got to, this is how I am, and I've got to still keep learning and still keep accepting who I am, and that my brain does do different things, and, and I love it, and I've got to learn to love it, and I am learning to love it, but it's hard when you do have this past experience, but I thought, and I think I have forgiven, because there's no point holding on to that. But it's that acceptance. So it's, again, I think how you start that journey is your internal dialogue, taking you for who you are, good and bad, and what you don't like. What can you start to change in that? If you can, I can't change my wonky eye. I've had 2 operations. That did not happen, but it's embracing it. And there may be things, like me being perimenopausal. That's been such a struggle. And I've had to accept kind of my body doesn't do the things I want it to do anymore. I can't play sport like I used to. I have this wonderful extra layer of fat that's decided to join me that wish that would depart. But without doing the sport, I can't, it swings and roundabouts. So it's kind of going, okay, what can I do and what can't I do? And I love Covey in his circles of control and influence. And it's part of that is part of your self-acceptance. What can I control? What can I not control? And I think, and Dan and I are going on our journeys, and I think it will always be and ever, and accepting that it's going to be a continuous journey, I think.
Thank you for just sharing your personal experience of that. I think that's going to be really insightful for people who might not have the same journey as you, but just to hear the journey you've gone through. And what I'm picking out from that is first of all, just this sense of noticing what's my internal dialogue. And then when you notice it, there's a sense of just asking, how helpful is this internal dialogue? And if you're saying to yourself, actually, this internal dialogue I'm telling myself about myself isn't helpful, it's then thinking, well, what might be a more helpful thing to be starting to say? And just being curious. And the last bit you talked about, it was, okay, so what can I do? What can I control? And if I can't control something about a certain aspect, then I have to let go of that and focus on the bits that I want to make small differences on bit by bit. So even though someone else's journey might not be the same, I think those key aspects are really important on how you can start that journey of kindness to yourself. Because if we want to be kind to others, we've got to start that journey of being kind to ourselves. So yeah, thank you for that real honest kind of journey of what you've gone through. I think that's going to be really helpful to our listeners. So that leads me on to our next question, that if we're doing that bit of work on ourselves, how do we also help others with the journey of self-acceptance and kindness to ourselves? Is there anything that we can do to help them? And many of our listeners are not coaches or therapists or anything like that. So it's not about helping people to become therapists, but it's just saying, what is the culture of kindness, I guess, that we can create to help people to be kind to themselves?
So I think for me and for Kiltti and for when I've been with friends and, had people I've managed, how I've helped people is I've had a genuine interest in them. And I've tried to create a safe space for them. And when you understand and respect someone else, you create that safe space, not automatically, but you earn it. And so for people then to be able to feel safe, to be vulnerable, to share their feelings or how they are with you, that's a real honour, and it needs to be respected. And so I think and having the skills to be able to just listen to them and listen without interrupting, listen with silence, listen with kind questions, so that they are able to explore how they're feeling, explore what's okay and what's not okay, and then for them to move forward with that and kind of, start that journey of that internal dialogue. What do they say to themselves? Most people will acknowledge that they won't speak to themselves particularly kindly, will definitely not speak to themselves internally how they would speak to a loved one. And it's starting off those conversations. It's reducing that stigma, having that culture of honesty and where it's safe to speak about things. And, and also for me, I will share a little bit about me that's boundaried, but it gives permission then for someone else to do it. And you have to be careful on that, and it has to be boundaried because it doesn't need to be about you, but it's about thinking, what do I need to help or aid this person to feel okay, and about talking about themselves so they can start to accept themselves.
So again, you're talking about that genuine desire there for the other person.
Yes.
As you say, your boundary, it's not about you, because we've had scenarios where someone shares and then and then
Yes.
it then becomes all about the other person. They
Absolutely.
tell their story and it's not about that. What you're talking about there is this vulnerability loop where you share enough for them to realise it's a safe space. This person will understand my feelings. And then you've talked again about that deep sense of listening to understand, not listening to answer, not listening to hold a conversation, just that listening to understand the person, isn't it? And those safe questions around, and how does that feel? those sort of questions then allow the person to share.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And to feel safe. You're not going to share your innermost thoughts or your vulnerabilities or your insecurities if you don't feel safe. And also if you don't relate to somebody. And so there has to be that level of professionally, personally, whatever it works for you, and that'll be dependent on that individual. But that safety is key, and creating that safe environment, which will look different for different people.
So we're moving nicely into this sense of our reason for being kind to others. So we've explored kind to ourselves, and we're now starting to create this culture where it's safe for them to be kind to themselves. But we're moving into us being kind to them by listening, etc. So what are our reasons for being kind, though? I mean, I think you and I are generally nice, kind people, and we can see the benefit of it. But for our listeners, what are our reasons that we should be kind to others?
Oh, there's so many. So firstly, it has the ripple effect. So usually when someone shows you kindness, you want to pass that on. And it makes both parties feel good. So when you're kind and it's genuine, there's an endorphin hit. So it's there's genuine reasons. There's the brain releases, I think it's oxytocin. So it's this amazing chemical reaction that you have. It's free. And then one thing which is amazing, but everyone feels better. The person receiving it feels better, and they want to pass it on. And so, and it's just gentler. It just makes people feel happy. It reduces stress. So, as part of our training, we do a combat stress with kindness course, and stress is so high. At the moment, we see people where there's a lot of intolerance and a lot of impatience and a lot of anger and a lot of stress. We're told that we have to do all of these things for work, and there's a lot of pressure on us, and so this has multiple issues on our bodies. So high blood pressure, high cholesterol, we can age faster. Kindness changes all of that. So actually, even in the brain, when we're kind, when we're stressed, there's the muscle that's really high and overpowering. But when you're kind, the wonderful hormone comes in and squashes that muscle. And I love all of that. And it's kind of, why would you not do that? It's better for your health, physically, emotionally. It makes you feel better. It has so many repercussions for you, and it's just easy to do, and it doesn't take much. A simple smile is one thing I missed when I moved to London, 15 or so years ago. So no one smiled in London, and I remember talking to one of my old clients, and she said, "What is it do you miss?" I said, "I miss people smiling. I just miss it." And it was just, and when you go to London and you smile, people think you're bonkers, and you're like, "How is this the case? This is just," and I, during lockdown, I was determined, this is when I was back in Suffolk and lived in Suffolk. I live in a tiny little village and everyone knows everyone, but people were wanting to venture out a little bit more when it was safe to do so. And I was determined to get this chap to smile at me and not talk, doesn't have to talk, but by the end of it, by the third week, he was smiling and I was like, yes. And it didn't do anything. And then did start a conversation. It didn't have to, that wasn't the purpose of it, but I just want to make you feel, that's the driver. I want to make you feel better. I want to make you feel, and actually we don't know what's going on for people. I don't know what's going on in your life. I don't know, and I don't necessarily need to know what's going on for you, but actually I want to do is I just want to show you there's a little bit of niceness, a little bit of hope, that kindness. I want to make you feel a little bit better, that there's people around that do care. And I think that's why we should be kind, is because, and I think it's something that comes up quite a lot on different social medias, is that Robin Williams talks about, you don't know what people are going through, so just be kind. There's also, everyone has their own stuff to deal with, and so just showing kindness just eases that a little bit. So why would you not want to do that? Why would you not want to help someone else?
Yeah. So loads of good reasons for being kind. You see, in my work with coaching with people, you really get to understand people and what makes them tick and what brings fulfillment. And so I've seen it reiterated, the basic human needs that I think people have: to be known, to be loved, this sense of belonging and a sense of purpose. And I think when we're kind to others, it helps people to feel this sense of that they're known and that they belong and that they're loved. And there's a Zulu phrase I often use with people, which I really love. It's Ubuntu. And Ubuntu means this, I am human because of the other. It's the sense where our humanity comes to fulfillment when we show this kind of love, care and compassion to others. So I think kindness fits so well into those basic core human needs, and you've just described some of that aspect in some of those examples you've given. So how do you see kindness as key to humanity?
Ooh. I think
that's how I see it. That kindness really fulfills some of those core functions about being known, loved, and belonging. But have I got that wrong? Right?
Right. I think right. I mean, it is core. People, whoever they are, whatever neurodiversity they have, however they're wired, people need to feel connection. That will change or be different for different people, whether introverted, extroverted, however they are, but they still need to feel that they belong. They still need to feel connected to a society, to something, to a family, to a, rightly or wrongly, a gang. But it's that sense of belonging, like you're talking about. And when we show kindness and being included and feeling valued, all of those things is humanity. And being kind, including someone who's on the outside or outskirts, or when they've done something wrong, or showing that kindness. Humans make mistakes. So it's, instead of putting fear into them, and punishment is needed, and that's again can be, is part and parcel of consequences of behaviours. But when you show kindness as part of all of those things and is at the core of what you do, and it's what you believe firmly, that is humanity. It's everything, I think, and it should be everything. And we see so much hate on news and on media, and I don't think the world is full of hate. I think it's actually the other way around. I think there is so much good that we don't get to see, and I don't understand, well, I do understand it, why it's not shown, but there is so much goodness in people. And, I live in a village where it's a wonderful community, but I had that in London as well. When I lived in London, I lived in a small community, in a borough, and you saw kindness as well as all the other bad stuff as well. And it's kind of that balance, and it is the core of humanity, and it's been going for years. And when we're kind, it builds confidence, it builds people's strengths, it just makes people feel good on the inside and outside, and it's just...
I guess it comes back to the word you mentioned earlier around safety. So when you feel you genuinely belong as you are, it creates a space of safety. So that's the key element, isn't it? That this kindness brings this sense of belonging, which brings safety.
Yeah.
You've got a bold statement on your website. It's quite a long one, but I think it's really an important one for us to reflect on. You've put, we noticed that of all the managerial skills we used, it was kindness that brought the best results and the most satisfaction. We believe that genuine understanding, trust and respect amongst colleagues throughout organisations results in greater productivity, job satisfaction and staff retention. And you alluded to that quite early on, didn't you? And how it reduces the sickness rate, it ensures your production goes up. And I think you said 12% was a figure you used. So tell us more about this genuine understanding, trust and respect, and how it's part of kindness and the impact that has then. What is this genuine understanding, trust and respect?
So I think when we were setting up Kiltti, Dan and I, a key part of that was looking to see whether it was, could Dan and I do it? Is it, are we able to do it? And is kindness enough? Is that okay? And ironically, someone asked me, because my big dreams are that I want to make a multi-million-pound business based on kindness. I want that to be thriving. And someone said, well, is that possible? And I went, I don't know, but I'm going to give it a good try. And I think, and part of that kind of reflection was that how Dan and I at the time had both been senior leaders in charities, national and local charities, and looking back on how we were as leaders and how we wanted to be seen. And throughout it for us, kindness ran through it. It was the overriding driver for us. And when we showed kindness to our teams, we saw a huge difference. When we took notice in them and talked to them and found out how they were and how they worked and what motivated them into coming into work, we saw better results. And one of the examples I can give is that I had a small team, and one of the people that worked for me, they had small children. And so for her, the main driver was that they wanted to come into work between the hours of taking her children to school and picking them up and just do her job and leave. But I was concerned because she had a doctorate from Oxford University, so she was incredibly intelligent. And I thought, or worried she might get bored. So I wanted to respect her desire and her motives to come into work. But I also wanted her to thrive and be motivated in work, because what she was doing was, I felt for her, and was right, mundane and not going to be, fulfilling. So it worked out. She loves numbers and spreadsheets and all those things that I absolutely hated. It didn't mean that it still meant that she could be home for her children. There wasn't any stress when she left work. It was still what she could do within her hours. She still got credit and made sure she got credited for it. It wasn't, I didn't take any glory for the work that she did, but it kept her motivated, and it was in keeping with who she was, and it was a genuine interest in her. And she thrived, and as a result, she was wanting to come into work. She wanted to do more. She did do more. And as her children got older, that evolved. But the other members of my team are very different. And so one of them was, all of them were very bright, but different ways of being and different. One was incredibly, I hope this is a kind way of saying it, chaotic, but an amazing trainer. And the other one was incredibly organised. And they could be, if that wasn't handled well, all three of those people could be intimidated by those different things in each other. But because we listened to each other, and I made sure we listened to each other and understood our drivers and understood things, that kindness made it possible to have a really strong team. I could have been intimidated by the person in my team who's got a doctorate from Oxford, because there was no way I was ever going to get that, and that was fine. But because I was comfortable in me and accepted who I am, and she had so much to bring to the team, as did all of them, with all of their different quirks and ways, that we could bring each other, and we did, and we had an amazing team. And that's always what I've done, and I've always had really strong teams as a result of finding out kind of what their strengths are, what motivates them, because it will be different for different people, and not focusing on their weaknesses, because when you focus on that, becomes the whole focus, and that is not right.
Yeah, brilliant. You've got a kindness charter on your website. You've got 1, promote kindness.
Yes. 2,
act responsibly. 3, practice patience. Be positive, demonstrate boundaries. Interestingly, under act responsibility, you have ensure those around you are respected and heard. And I see the power of listening to understanding coaching. So that same principle of listening and making sure that people are respected and heard does have real power. You've alluded to it several times, actually, around this whole respecting and hearing. So tell us a little bit more about the power then of really respecting and hearing people.
I think the power is when, so again, people want to feel connected, people want to feel heard, people have something to bring, have something to offer. And when you genuinely hear that and take time to hear that, and that's the important part, is making the time. People will say, I don't have time for that. Of course you do. If you want your business to thrive, if you want them to thrive, you make the time to, and you create a space to make them feel heard.
Yeah, so it's time well spent.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah, so I would say that, and ironically, people, I don't know if it's ironic, those team members, all of them are still in touch with me. It's boundaried, it's not, but people still want to come back and work for me for Kiltti. They're asking me, when can we come work for you? And whether that's possible or not, I hope so, because it would be a great team again. But because we created a nice place for them to be. And so making someone feel heard they feel part of it. They're connected. They feel they have something to offer, which they do. Everyone has something to offer. So why would you not want to hear that? Why would you not want to be in a team that has so much to bring to the table? And yeah, respecting someone, they're going to be different to you. And that's, respect is an interesting one. At school, you had to stand up when the teacher came in and say, "Morning, sir," and you had to respect your teachers. And for me, respect has to be earned, and it had to be a mutual respect. So teacher had to respect me, and I know I go back to that, but for me, it was a big learning point, because actually there was one teacher who clearly didn't respect me, and that really agitated me for lots of reasons, because there was a divide, there was inequality, and so when it has to be equality, and there has to be respect as part of that, and it has to be earned, and you have to give those spaces to be able to feel someone to feel heard, so that you can earn that respect. And as just because I'm the co-founder of Kiltti, it isn't automatic respect. I have to earn it.
So it's interesting there. You've linked a little to your aspect on establishing boundaries as well. So that's an interesting thing to be thinking about boundaries in terms of kindness, because you're alluding to the fact that somebody there not behaving appropriately towards you. And I've got a number of clients where we've explored things around boundaries and how boundaries are important for kindness to yourself as well. So tell us a bit more about what boundaries mean in your charter then around kindness.
Without boundaries, I don't know how you can be kind or even be, because kindness shows boundaries show other people how you want to be treated. Boundaries shows what is okay and what's not okay, and why. And so what it does show is that it shows compassion towards you and to them. Yeah. So actually, although I'm kind, this is how I want to be treated, and I won't tolerate this treatment or this behaviour and whatever. And it's being really clear about what's okay and what's not okay. And that'll be different for different people. And so we talk about boundaries a lot at Kiltti. And so for me as a leader, what isn't okay is not being kind. So actually in Kiltti, if anyone is displaying things that are not kind, I need to have the courage to find out what's going on, but I have to do it in a kind way. But I've got to do it boundaried way. I've got to do it in a sensitive, nurturing way. Otherwise, it goes against everything that we believe in. But it's kind of, boundaries are just so important. And I think people can worry about boundaries, that they can worry that if they're not boundaried, then people won't think they care, that people will think that they're not okay, that you can't please other people, that you can't do good. And Brené Brown talks about, she's someone that I love her books, and I really can relate to her stories in her books and what she talks about. But she talks about boundaries, and that she says that some of the most compassionate people that she's ever spoken to are the most boundaried. And I'm like, absolutely. And when I first started my career, even volunteering as a student and going into kind of social work, it was so important that we were boundaried, because we were dealing with some really vulnerable young people. So we had to be really clear what we could do, what we couldn't do, but also that we cared, and that all of the drivers behind that were because we cared. But there has to be people need boundaries to feel safe, and that is the core of it. If they don't know what's expected of them, if they don't know what's expected of you, then it's not safe. It's unknown, and that's when you get behaviours that are not okay. So for me, I was always really adamant, that I knew what my boundaries were. But that changes as you get older. And starting Kiltti, I thought I was really boundaried, and then someone came in and I wasn't as boundaried as I thought I was. And but it's really interesting that you have that. It's not in my 20s they were one thing, my 30s another, and my 40s they're another, and maybe in a few years when I reach my 50s, then they will change again. But it's understanding that and knowing that it evolves, and kind of checking in with you. What's okay and what's not okay, what's okay with the business, what's okay with is it aligned with my values. And that's really important, I think, as well. And And it's being able to implement those boundaries kindly and safely so that you can do the best work you can and hear people and create those safe spaces.
So time flies in the Leadership Lounge, and we're nearly at the end of our time here. There's one final quote that you've used on your website I want us to explore, and then we're going to look at your top 3 tips for kindness. And this really, I guess, links to the impact of kindness. We've alluded to a number of things that kindness will impact on, how it has this ripple effect that you've talked about, how it will make difference to your company and your business, and this word safety has come across a lot as well for people. And if people feel safe, it allows growth. You quote Aesop on your website with "No act of kindness, however small, is ever wasted." So tell us a little bit more about how you see that no act of kindness is ever wasted.
Well, it's contagious, isn't it? So even that smile, that bloke, hopefully made him feel better. A smile on the train to somebody, even if having a bad day, it's not going to change that bad day, but it gives them hope that there's nice people around. There's 2 things I always do, is I always send out birthday cards and Christmas cards. And this year I've been kind of wondering whether that's a good thing to do or not, and whether I should do it environmentally. Is it being kind to the environment with the paper and card and all the rest of it? And then my friend, out of the blue, said to me, just sent me this lovely message saying, "Every birthday card that you sent me saved me. I was in a really dark place, but I always knew I was going to get something from you." And that just gave me hope. And I was like, oh my goodness, it was tiny little thing of just remembering someone's birthday card, birthday, and just sending them a card is tiny, and and the impact on them was huge. An impact I didn't know about. I did it just because I want to do it, because I know that for me, I like having a birthday card. And the same with the Christmas card. I send one. I didn't send a few this year, and people have said, "Why not? I love getting your Christmas cards, and they're not special. They're not, but it's just a thought. I'm thinking of someone, and that's really important." So, whether it's a smile, whether it's putting your neighbour's bin out, whether it's just doing something just because you want to, because it's genuine, it never goes unnoticed. Whether it's people by them or by you or strangers or whoever. It's so important, and it just makes things nicer.
And what I'm picking up here is this sense then that kindness brings hope.
Yeah.
I think some key words that have come out of our conversation are around it creates safety and it brings hope. And from those seeds, what grows is growth in people. And we've talked about the fact that actually you create this culture within your organisation of kindness. People feel safer, they feel happier, they're willing to contribute and grow as part of that. And as a result, your organisation, whether that's a charity, a business or a school, can grow from that because people will be committed. You create this sense of connection, that word we've used today as well, isn't it? That sense of community. So time flies, as we said, on the Leadership Lounge, and it's been great having you with us. And we're at this sad point where we have to draw it together. I could keep talking for hours with you around kindness, so it's been great and really appreciate your time with us today. But we come to that point of the top 3 tips, which I ask each guest, whether they can come up with 3 or not, even if it's just one top tip. But do you have some top tips for our listeners around kindness?
Yeah, be genuine. Doesn't have to be big, be small. Just take a genuine interest in someone. Just ask them how they are.
Lovely.
Just start small.
Yeah, genuine, small, and just ask how they are.
Yeah,
really simple. And it's something we can all do, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that can create those safe spaces that we've talked about that allow people to flourish.
Yeah.
So brilliant. Thank you ever so much for joining us today on the Leadership Lounge. We've loved what you've shared with us. For our listeners and those who've been watching us on YouTube, it's great you can join us in the Leadership Lounge, and we look forward to you joining us again next month for our next topic. Goodbye.